welcome back to The Short Game. This is a show about short video games, games that respect your time. I'm Raygan Kelly, and I'm joined this week by two fantastic co-hosts.
Laura Nash.
And Shane Kelly.
And this week, we are not really quite sure what we're talking about. This is one of those weird off weeks where we don't have a specific game to talk about. And very often we try to rotate in something like a topic episode where we come up with a specific topic to discuss. And this one, we're probably going to treat it more a little bit like a chat and, see where we get. Because we've all got a few things to talk about, but we don't have one, North Star topic right now. We're all just we've got some stuff to talk about.
Well, I think our most loyal listeners know that we are stalling for time in order to all finish 1000X Resist, which, we only cover short games, and this is a short game, but it's on the long side for the short games.
It took me about 12 hours, which is obviously over our cap for the types of games that we play, especially here in the fall. It's really long. The fall is a time when we have a really hard time playing long stuff because, it gets stacked. And I was fitting it in and around IF Comp and other stuff like that. But I finished it. I absolutely loved it. I can't wait to talk about it. Listeners, if you have not played I keep calling it 10,000X Resist because I kept reading it wrong for ages. It's 1,000. By the way, I listened to a bunch of stuff with the developers. They call it 1,000 times Resist.
Oh, cool.
So There you go. 1,000 times Resist. If I was thinking X because there's all those Godzilla movies and anime and stuff where they put an X in the middle of the title, and very often it's
X by X Family. Yeah.
Yeah. Although no, actually, you're just supposed to say Spy Family for that one. There's no consistency to this at all.
Come on.
I know. And sometimes people pronounce the X as against or versus as well. There's no consistency whatsoever. Yeah. So anyway, 10,000. God, I did it again. 1,000 times Resist. Look forward to that in a future episode. We have been preparing for it, but here we are. We're not done. And that's one of those things where you really need to be close to done or completed before you can really talk about it, because it's really all story.
Well, that was kind of like a trailer for our next episode in this episode.
Yeah, there you go. Before we get into talking about video games, Shane, tell us about what happened a couple of nights ago.
2 nights ago. It is a little crazy.
I have not heard this story from listeners, so you're going to get my reactions in real time.
So I frequently at night, I like to take bike rides. It's Texas. Best time to ride is at night, just because it's not 1,000 degrees. And, the weather's great. Mm-hmm. And just this, so my ride through Houston's East End is pretty mapped out. And then last night I had made my way over to the area near Houston's premier Mexican restaurant, Ninfa's on Navigation. And I hear a gigantic sound behind me that sounds like a garbage truck being dragged through gravel. It was a huge noise. Literally, my ears were still ringing the next day after hearing this. And I whip my head around, and there's a gigantic fireball that's the size of, it shoots up. I couldn't at first make sense of how big it was, because I thought maybe it was really close or something. It was, or I couldn't tell how far away it was, and I wasn't even sure if it was a firework or what. And people were starting to run, but towards it.
Oh, God.
To see what was going on.
No.
And a guy was biked past me. Did you see that? Before heading straight that direction. And my reaction was, hell no, I'm getting out of here.
Hell no.
Because the next thing I assumed it was a chemical explosion, which has happened in Houston before.
Texas is a big chemical explosion town. We love them here.
No, I hauled ass home, where I promptly got a text message from someone I work with saying, Shane, are you okay? Did you see the helicopter crash? And I didn't realize that was what I'd even seen, but it was a helicopter. It was dark. Wow. It was just past dusk. And also it happened kind of behind me, and I only looked around to see, I think, the second impact. It was, honestly, it's a huge tragedy, but it was bizarre and terrifying at the moment. And so,
it hit there's a tower, like a radio tower for a radio
station.
One
of the tallest thing in the East End has always been this big red and white FM tower that has a few there's like 2 or 3 different local radio stations on it. And there's even been some back and forth with the city about this tower, because the city wanted to build like some housing near it that would have been in the fall zone, and it hadn't actually begun construction yet. But the tower was hit by this helicopter, and it was a touring helicopter, and both of them came down, and there was debris everywhere. So crazy.
I believe I've seen that only the pilot was in it, not an active tour, which is I haven't seen all the details there yet, but yeah, pretty crazy. I didn't mean to bring the whole podcast down. It was just like one of those crazy stories that Shane told me about recently, and I thought Laura.
No, I appreciate it. I mean, I also appreciate Shane.
Video games.
There's no video game angle to that story. Maybe you guys need to.
Shane, you are like me. Outside of video games, like, we are not protagonists in a horror movie. We are not protagonists in any movie, because literally anything exciting happens, and we run the opposite direction.
Yeah, but I mean, this. I've certainly have never witnessed an air crash before, and
no,
I was within 3 blocks, maybe 3.5 blocks of this gigantic, and it was so strange to have seen it and watched it happen and not have understood what it was that I saw until later. It was anyway. What video games are you guys playing? I went home after that and I played 1,000 X Resist. 1,000 times,
which is more
Resist.
more apropos than I'm afraid. Oh, there's some shit coming later. I don't want to spoil it. So well, let's change the topic then. There's a couple things that we can talk about. The first thing I was going to briefly talk about a little bit briefly was that I've been having, and Shane knows this because he's played some of this with me. I mentioned this a little bit on the show. I got a Quest 3 recently.
That thing is so cool. Honestly,
it's really tight. Yeah, and so I've been playing a lot of VR games.
Nothing now. The three is great.
Oh, yeah, it's really neat. So I thought I'd just quickly talk about, because the thing is, like, I wasn't following VR as a scene. We've actually talked VR on this podcast before. Way back, several of us got PSVRs, and we talked a lot about that. We had a couple of episodes, maybe, I think, where we talked about some games on PSVR. But like that eventually went in a closet and hasn't been unzipped from its thingamabob that it's in probably like 6+ years for me at this point. So I was like fully checked out from the VR scene, not paying attention. It also had seemed like, VR got really expensive for a while. And then it got subsumed into this whole conversation about the metaverse that I thought was just like laughable. Like, I was just completely not interested in buying a fancy headset to go to Zoom meetings.
And
like,
to be a severed torso.
Right. Just like silliness, right? And so I was pretty much completely not paying attention to what had been happening in VR at all. And in the meantime, while I wasn't looking, VR basically, like the Meta Quest series, basically just turned into a game console. You pull all of the pretension to being a metaverse out of the thing, and it's like that stuff is kind of still there, but it's like no one pays attention to it, or it seems like basically nobody does. Like that, you can still like go in and hang out with 12-year-olds in MetaQuest Horizon worlds or whatever. But like, if you don't do that, and you basically just treat the thing like a game console now. And so I kind of had to reevaluate, like, well, what is this platform? What is this kind of thing like as just a games console? Like, that's how it treats it. It has a store for games. You buy the thing, you buy games on it, you play them. And it's kind of neat. A lot of things have changed very recently in the scene of these things. And because of that, I think it might be worth, if you haven't checked in on or thought about buying or playing VR in a while, it might be worth a look now. Because first of all, when they changed course away from the metaverse stuff, and they'll tell you that's still totally part of their.
You can still go on the metaverse. I mean, I'm sure it's. I'm sure it's even better than ever before.
But you can tell that their heart's not in it now, and nobody's paying attention to it. But they've canceled their high-end, businessy-oriented Quest Pro.
You can still download Microsoft Office on this thing.
That's true, you can. That's actually another thing that's changed, is the way that they're handling like apps. But I'll get to that. The thing that's like the strategy has clearly changed. They're not pushing this thing towards the high end anymore. They're letting Apple have the high end. and they are focused very squarely on the middle and low end of the market, which is where the money seems to be for these things. The game console, not the MacBook Pro, right? And so the MetaQuest Pro is out the window, and they have introduced a brand new model that replaces the old Quest 2 that is the Quest 3S. So rather than come out with a brand new hotness version this year, they actually came out with a stripped down version of basically the nice headset that they released last year. So the headset I have is the 3, which is like last year's fancy new model that was not the Pro. They've actually bumped that down in price a little bit, but then they introduced a cut down version of the 3, the 3S, for only $300, which is, I think, a really decent price. That's like spitting distance of a Nintendo Switch, right? Like, and Nintendo Switches are not expensive these days. Like, $300 is a good price for one of these, and it's not quite as fancy as the 3. So it has like the Fresnel lenses, which are considered the like not quite as nice lenses as the pancake lenses. If it's your first headset, it's not going to matter. Like you'll have a good time either way. And crucially, the tech inside them, the chipsets and everything, exactly the same. So I think as a like introduction to playing VR games, the MetaQuest 3S is potentially a really good jumping on point, and that just came out. And so I've been playing a lot on the 3, and I mentioned a few of the games I've been playing a little bit ago, but I was going to
on an episode that I wasn't on, I think it was the mouthwashing. You were talking about our time in that golf game on there, and I enjoyed that a lot. I really like. The best thing they can do for these games is just to make it easier and more comfortable to like get into the headset and wear it.
Yeah.
And make it good for kind of a chill, relaxing time. Because for me, the best games are not the ones where I'm up and swinging a sword or a club or what have you. It's the ones where I'm like, I guess my favorite of all time still Ultra Wings, flying an airplane, something fun.
That one makes me sick.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the entry friction was so high. I had the same problem I did playing the Kinect, which is you have to rearrange your living room to do so. And that was always a tough thing for me. I have to baby proof my living room to play a VR game because I'm going to kill myself. Because I live in a small place. And
I had to literally baby proof the VR. I think the
sitting games made me happy.
I had to literally.
Moss made me happy.
Yeah. So this is something that's actually changed a lot.
No, I'm sorry. I had to literally baby proof. You're saying baby proof your apartment? My kid, he likes the VR headset, but he just was begging me, Dad, give me a game where I am attacking things with a sword. I want.
No,
of course. That was my fear.
Blindfold pinata apartment. That's basically what that was.
And
amazing.
So I did find a game for him that you can play in there, like you're standing up, but you're not walking around. You're like in one place and attacking things with a sword. I am not making a recommendation to this game, but I think it was called Until You Fall, which is basically you played it, Raygan? You played Until You Fall?
I downloaded it. I like booted it up, but I haven't played it much. It's on that MetaQuest Plus
It
service.
is. That's why I threw it on there. And it's a little bit of a roguelike kind of thing, but I don't think that that's the part of it that my son is really engaging in. He just really likes swinging swords at monsters. So
yeah. But you're saying that the need to completely rearrange and proof your apartment is better?
It has improved a lot, and the big thing that's changed is the pass-through has gotten
the pass-through is better, and I think the ability to make your board, the little boundary you can set, is a lot better.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah. So like when you put the thing on initially, it's not like instantly you're like a hooded falcon and you can't move around. It pretty much whenever you put the headset on, unless it's already like in the middle of something, you just see your room and everything around you, which is great because you can go pick up your controllers and make sure things are good, even if your headset is on and it might be like superimposing menu screens in front of you. You can still see your room, and it's in 3D, or well, not 3D. It's basically 3D, and it's in color, which is the biggest change from the Quest 2. And that, and the fact that like when you do the boundary thing, you can see your room around you, and you can like basically you have this like thing where you point at the floor and it does like it's like you're driving a Roomba around your floor, and you're like making yourself a safe zone. And if you step outside the safe zone or too close to the edge, you immediately see it. And it starts like showing you your room instead of the VR that you're in. So it's actually really easy. Like I have a pretty small, my office is like moderately large, but like I just kick my ottoman out of the way and I'm good. I don't need to like rearrange my
Now,
life.
Laura, your apartment might still be too small for this.
I understand.
You might have to do it out in the street.
I am no longer recording in a closet. Upgrade. However, I still live in a 1-bedroom. I can do for people trying to imagine the difference between the palatial house and the 1-bedroom hovel. I do have enough room to do, say, a ring fit, or a yoga mat will comfortably work out in front of the screen. However, that boundary is the boundary of a yoga mat, and that is a little small for VR.
I think if you can imagine yourself working out anywhere in your home, you can play VR in your house. I think that's pretty much, because like there are experiences where you like literally move around your space, but that basically isn't a thing with the Quest headsets. It's almost all like you're standing in one place and then you're using the controls in the VR to move your character around.
So definitely your office is getting their money's worth for the fitness payment for your Oculus, is what I'm hearing.
Honestly, yeah. Like I mentioned that before. The reason that I bought this thing is not because I suddenly had a craving to play VR. I honestly hadn't thought about VR in a long time, and it was kind of like off the table. But then I found out, like, I was accruing a bunch of money via my work fitness program, and I realized that one of the approved items you can buy on my fitness program is a VR headset. And so I was like, well, I can buy this with this work funny money that I could only spend on a gym membership. I'm not going to buy anyway. And honestly, I've been getting more exercise in it than I expected. There's certain things like games where you're swinging a gun around or whatever that like, oh, I guess I don't hold my arms up in this position very often, and my arms really hurt afterwards. Or like doing a bunch of squats and crouches, and it's like, well, it's not really a workout, but it is something. So, that's fun. But yeah, I just thought I'd bring it up, in more of the context of a conversation like this, rather than just a what's making me happy. The games that I've been enjoying most, I've been playing a lot of Pistol Whip, which is a rhythm shooting game. It's kind of like in a shooting gallery that's where you're sliding along a track, essentially. Think of it like a rhythm game where...
Raygan, I think you talked about this on the last episode, though. So
I probably did. I probably already talked about it. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Having a lot of fun with that. The game that I definitely hadn't talked about last time, and I've just checked out recently, is kind of the big release on Quest right now, is the new Arkham Batman game, which is stunning. It's amazing. So if you have ever played an Arkham game, like one like Arkham City or like Arkham Asylum, any of those games, it's literally one of those. Like, it has all of the elements of one of those. It is played in first person in VR as Batman. So you have, it's pretty incredible. It looks just like one of those games, except fully immersive. Like, you're in it. You can go and like get all up in Jim Gordon's face. It's very strange. The character models are pretty detailed.
Well, they had a great VR Batman on the PSVR as well. It's just a character and a property that works fantastically in VR. Everybody wants to be Batman.
Yeah. They figured something out with this one, though. Like the way that what they figured out is how to do like a brawler. Like, those Batman games were always basically like, oh, 6 thugs just came out of the hallways and you got to beat them up. And you got brawling, one versus many fighting stuff. And I wouldn't have expected that to work in VR. But what they figured out here is that like, you kind of like look at any one of the dudes who's coming at you and you pretend to throw a punch at them, and Batman just zips straight to them. So even if they're like 12 feet away from you or something, you go to throw a punch and you just sort of like fly at them Batman style. And then you follow up with like a combo. So it's kind of like a boxing, almost like a rhythm thing where it's like, okay, you got to do, a jab and a uppercut and a side punch, whatever you call that. And it gives you a little combo to complete to beat them up. And you also have to like defend yourself. So you'll see like
and of course batarangs,
somebody coming at you
right?
from behind.
Gotta have the batarangs.
Yes, of course. There's batarangs. There's the like.
So you've got it all. You got the whole Batman kit and caboodle.
Yeah, It's all good stuff. And the funniest one is that you can glide by, you have to hold your arms out to the sides slightly behind you.
Like a flying squirrel or a road?
Like a Naruto run.
I literally, a Naruto run was exactly what I thought. It's like you hold your arms back like you're Naruto running.
What was Naruto? What was that?
Naruto.
That's
Naruto.
a lovely brain.
Boruto's dad.
Yeah, Boruto's dad, yes.
You hold your arms back and you like push the triggers in and you fly. It's very silly. It feels dumb. It looks ridiculous, but it plays really well. And it's like a full like AAA thing. It's clear that like I don't know what the developer is, but I think like Oculus like paid for its development, and it is a pack-in with all of the Quest products right now. So like when I bought my Quest 3, it came with a code. Actually, not a code. It was just like part of it. Like you signed in with your account and it automatically added it to your account. So if you buy a Quest right now, it just comes with this Batman game, which is very cool. And it also came with like 3 months of their like subscription program thing, which is why I've been able to try a bunch of other games. And yeah, I don't know what else there is to say about it other than that, like, I'm actually surprised. It feels like this stuff kind of, at least from my perspective, kind of just like went in the background and then suddenly came back and it's very good. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure part of that is just like, hey, I got a free headset and I'm having fun with it. But like there've been a lot of changes to the product recently, and it's getting a lot of improvements, and it's getting a little more mass market with this much more console-y like price point. Like, this is going to be, I think, is a good Christmas present if you've got somebody in your life who you think might enjoy something like this. So just, pretty cool. Hey, if listeners out there have a VR headset and are, playing it still, hit me up with recommendations.
Yeah. Or, catch him on the green.
Yeah, I bought the expensive golf game for it. Been enjoying that. It's not that
Raygan,
good.
you can come to my house. I have a golf course that we could walk to.
Yeah, it's not digital enough for me. It's funny. Like I realized by playing this golf video game in VR that I think the problem is that I'm just not good at actual golf. Like I tried to learn it and I kept having these weird control problems. And I went on the Discord for Golf Plus, this golf. I mean, I was like, hey guys, can I get some game tips here? Or like, how can I learn how to like when I hit the ball, it's always fading to the right instead of, how do I get it to go straight? And everyone who responded was like, this game is not a teaching tool, man. You need to take golf lessons.
Burn.
Which I was like, what, really? Like, oh my God. So I got to take golf lessons.
Well, me too. I've never played golf. So
yeah,
I got a golf course right by my house. Never golfed in my life. So speaking of games, have we talked, Raygan, has the Arcade Expo been discussed? Speaking of games, what a transition for our briefly podcast. Yeah. But have we talked about the Arcade Expo?
I think we talked a little bit about it on What's Making Us Happy, but I don't think we talked about much of it at all. So yeah, that was a lot of fun. That was our birthday present to me, basically. I dragged you.
Well, it was a good time. I kind of wanted to get into just a little bit about something I don't think we talked about on the last one, which was the new pinball machine that we both played. And I love pinball. This is one of the best reasons to go to these events is to play a lot of pinball. In fact, for the people that are real pinball heads, they'll have like tournaments as part of the event. There's a big like tournament element to the culture of pinball that I think is interesting. I just saw somebody with there's a pinball convention that has a tournament with like non-standard pinball setups where they do like weird control schemes or like they had one where you had to play this pinball machine while looking through a giant wooden cutout of the moon with a hole in it that was spinning. So you had to like move your head to be able to see the board. And they had another one that was controlled with like an what basically looked like a electromechanical Wii Fit like thing where you like a wobble board like you were standing on to control the pinball machine, or one where there was like a tilt sensor was built into a big thing that you wore on your head, so you had to keep your head perfectly still while playing. There was all sorts of things in this bizarre contest, but that wasn't this. This was.
I don't need anything to make pinball more difficult.
I
man.
know.
It's hard enough already.
Pinball is fun. Pinball is really fun. I mean, shout out to my friend who we saw his like old school pinball machines.
That was super sweet of him. Like we chatted with him for a little bit, and he like took us over to his machines that he brought to the expo, and he opened it up for me and like showed me the inside and everything, and we talked about it. That was really cool. Yeah. So one of the nice things about this is like the arcade. Yeah, nice. The arcade expo is most of what's in there is just like people who are arcade enthusiasts or video game enthusiasts in Houston and probably surrounding areas just bring their best stuff and put it in a great big hotel ballroom. And it's a lot of fun. One of my favorite things that we did.
Before we get off of pinball, though, I want to talk about the new pinball company.
Oh, yeah.
In Houston.
Ooh.
I need to look up their name real quick, but they have created a pinball machine that is based on the movie The Labyrinth, and it is a gorgeous machine. So
I couldn't believe that didn't already
that's
have a
exactly what
machine.
I was saying. Like, I mean, you start off with The Labyrinth, which is a like all-time great fantasy movie, right? So that alone makes it a good theme for a pinball machine, where every other fantasy movie, there's a Cull pinball machine, and it's one of the most beloved ones. And on top of that, you have the fantastic image of Gareth the Goblin King twirling balls in his hand. And like in that in that like fantastic scene where they had with the juggler with his arms under David Bowie's armpits to do all these crazy juggling moves. So you've got that imagery to work all into the machine. Of course, they made it a machine that had a screen that had movie clips that were great. The screen was done really beautifully. My favorite piece was right in the middle of the playfield. They had a tower that had Ludo would pop out the top of it. There's that scene at the end of the movie where Ludo throws down this big stone tower. And at the event, they had that full size with like a huge real size, full size tower, and with Ludo sticking at the top. So great theming. I thought I'm no like expert on pinball gameplay, but the aesthetics of this game were great. And it had great sound, of course, because it had music from the movie, great use of the clips, a lot of fantastic little miniatures in the playfield of all sorts of different things. I'm forgetting what all was there. And I just think the idea of a labyrinth, it is already like there's a lot of things you can do with labyrinths and like the labyrinth ball game and things like that. So all fantastic. Some people that went to the show, that went to the event, took a tour of the factory. And I now really wish we had, because that seems like it would have been really cool. That morning they had like a tour of the pinball machine factory available for people. And yeah.
I'm trying to find the name of the company too, because they're new, right? Like they somebody just started this company recently.
Yeah, I think so.
And is it Barrels of Fun?
I think that's it.
Yeah, and I think it's like Houston is, Houston's like, it's a big city. It's one of the biggest in the country, but sometimes it can feel a little bit like there's like when I moved from the Bay Area to Denver and then back, like there were a lot of things I missed. Like there were, video game related events and so on, but like the Arcade Expo is pretty solid. It's not quite like, it's not like world class or anything, but like it's a really good event. It's really, really well done. And for whatever reason, pinball in particular here, it seems like there's like leagues and there's a lot of places to go and play. Houston is a good pinball town, and it's something that I didn't know until, I don't know, not that long ago. Like it didn't occur to me that it's somewhat special in that way. But like this is a good pinball town, and there's multiple pinball based businesses here, including somebody just up and started this new one and made a brand new Labyrinth pinball machine. Wild to me. So yeah, I think it's really cool, and it was really cool to get to play it. It was a great machine. I really had a good time with it. And it's cool to see like a brand new modern pinball machine, right there in the same space as tons of much older machines, and you get a bit of a vibe. For how things have changed.
That was a good counterpoint to seeing Spence's old electromechanical machines where there's not a single chip inside the thing.
Mm-hmm. And if you want one of these Labyrinth pinball machines, you can get one for the paltry sum of about $10,000.
That's what I was going to guess, honestly. I've only known people who've got classic pinball machines, but I would guess if someone said, how much is playing pinball? I'd say 10K?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Sounds
I think
right.
like a rough shape, like old pinball machine is still probably a couple $1,000s.
Yeah.
And, they're also very difficult to like fix up and maintain. It's like a whole craft in and of itself. Yeah. So like a brand new one, 10,000 doesn't surprise me at all.
I walk around a PAX floor and I don't sign up for mailing lists. I'm very cautious with my data. And then someone will have a pinball machine up for grabs and I will just fill out your sheet. I don't care what you do with my data. Please give me a pinball machine. I have pinball machines and NBA jams. Multiple times have entered to win those. Never have. This is probably why I get spam texts. It's that and not all the internet I do. But if you want to steal my data, have me, have a pinball machine up for grabs and I will fill out any form.
Mm-hmm. Just seems like a kind of thing that would really go well in your apartment.
Yeah,
you have all the space.
I don't need this desk. Wouldn't it be better if I had a pinball machine and I just worked off of that?
Standing desks, forget about it. Pinball machines were the original standing desk.
I can talk to the Department of Agriculture from a pinball machine. I can work from anywhere.
You're just in the middle of a Zoom call and it's like what is that?
It would be my new thing. She designs and also
yeah. Semi-related, and I reserve the right for this to still be a future episode. I've been playing a little bit of Pinball Spire, which was recommended to us as a potential game for the show. I think it's good. It's like it's so rare that we get a good like pinball crossed with X game, and we've played a lot of them. I'm thinking back over the history of the show, and like I think the one that stands out the most is probably Yoku's Island Adventure, which is a stunning, absolutely phenomenal game that we'll never get another one of. That developer disbanded, and is very sad that we will never get a sequel to that. But like incredible pinball Metroidvania. This bills itself as a pinball Metroidvania as well. The Metroidvania-ness hasn't really struck me yet, but what it is a very good, basically pinball game with a bunch of interconnected tables that let you kind of climb a spire, which is essentially a bunch of pinball tables stacked on top of each other. Really, really well done tables so far. Like what I like about it most is that each table is pretty small and has like a clear, obvious, like here's the thing that you need to do, rather than like having a bunch of different potential sort of trick shots or whatever. The tables are pretty streamlined, and it has this mode where you can hit one of the analog sticks and you get a little pointer and you can just hover over anything on the pinball table and it will just tell you what it is and what it does, which I thought was like, wow, this is like if I had this in real pinball, if I could just like hover over like, okay, if you hit this, then this other thing over here is going to spin. Or if you touch this, it will give you 10,000 points or whatever. Or in order to open up the exit to the next area, you need to do this. Like it's very clear. And that is something that's not always the case with pinball or even pinball related video games. So recommend it. And honestly, man, people make more pinball games. I still think back all the time to Rollers of the Realm, which was a quote unquote pinball RPG, which I played.
Camera was in really close on the ball, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So it didn't feel like a pinball machine.
It was 3D. It had a pretty tight camera angle, but it also you could see it, like it had a table, but the tables were like kind of squat.
Sure.
And yeah, it was great. And we haven't had another one like it. It was on the Vita. I think I played it on the Vita. It's also on a few other things as well. I'm pretty sure it's on Steam as well. But like forgotten game, I think, but like really good one.
You were saying when we
games,
were talking with them about pinball, like they should do another Sonic Spinball. I feel like they didn't do that. They haven't played that idea out all the way. Let's see another Sonic Spinball game.
Yeah, that would be incredible. Like they should take another swing at that, because the first Sonic Spinball, apologies to anyone who has nostalgia for that game, but it runs like shit. It's a terrible game. It's one of the only games that has like an inconsistent and extremely low frame rate on the Genesis. Like try and play it today. You'll hate it. Like it's really bad. just on a technical level. But it's such a good idea. So like they should take another crack at that. And there was a bit of Sonic Spinball reference material in Sonic Mania. And I was like, man, this is great, but it's only for like a minute. There should be an entirely new Sonic Spinball game made today, and I bet you it would be great. You know, they could do some fun stuff with like mixing in some 3D Sonic stuff or, you know, whatever, man. Just do more Sonic Spinball. Oh, the other big thing that we should talk about from the Expo is the pods. I think we also may have mentioned
we
this
did get into the
previously on
pods
show.
before,
We did. Yeah, we talked about the pods. So I won't chew anybody's ear off about it, but in case you missed that, like we had this really great experience where we got to go in these 90s pods that are BattleTech pods. There's these back in the 90s during the sort of explosion of like BattleTech and mech stuff. They had these like arcade experience things that would be in like, you know, entertainment centers, and there'd be these set of networked pods that you'd get inside of and pretend you're in a mech.
So good.
And you'd have these like deathmatch type of things, and the tech
They're
in it
still
was
making
very
like
old
Mech
school
Warrior
and yet
games,
extremely
right?
well
But
done.
There's not
They
still
are,
making these weird pods.
No, but like it was so cool to have like the full like hands-on throttle and stick, like multiple screens.
Have you ever seen the
like,
Mech
it was
Warrior
really
that
cool.
was like the one that they made the super high end version that like was it came with an Xbox and a whole like the cubic box you had to buy?
I have. It's basically an adaptation of the
Yeah.
thing that we played. Like, yeah, it's basically that. But yeah, like having those physical controls for it was surprisingly
Really cool
and immersive.
Yeah,
loved it.
and having a guy like who wants to tell you the lore of this particular pod and who then like walks you over to it wearing soldier pajamas, puts you inside and slides the door shut so it's pitch black. That's just a good start to a gaming sesh.
I love it.
It was pretty cool. It makes me think like, you know, there's people spend a lot of money these days on gaming chairs and gaming desks, and even on things like racing rigs and VR setups and all that. Why can't you buy a pod, man? And it doesn't even need to have to like specifically be a Mech Warrior pod. Like, who wouldn't want like a weird little booth in the corner of their house with an Xbox in it or whatever? You know, lock your kid in there.
I bet you could get something like that on Temu or something, right? Come on, where's the gaming pod? No,
It's the Player
Cooler
One
Master
stuff.
has a pod for you.
Cooler Master makes
Cooler
pods.
Master makes a 750 pound. It's only semi-enclosed, so you're gonna have to spend some extra money to really fully enclose this pod.
Throw a blanket over it.
But you know what? You can game in a blanket for it today for free.
That is true.
That's true.
I've been actually
and we
going
all
out in the
should.
world and playing games. I've mostly just been researching games to play with my family over Christmas. I've been looking at so my family loves to play mean games. And they love to play, you know, the backstabby games, and they love to pick out games of, you know, find the spy, this deception games. And then we always end up in fights.
Oh no.
So it's you know, someone was too mean. One of the kids cries, we can't find the spy, or we find the spy too soon, and then someone wasn't trying hard enough. And so I'm trying to find cooperative games that don't feel like baby games, but aren't the cooperative games that I'm playing with my board game friends. For context, I've played things like Spirit Island, which is a game that I've played 3 times and am now just getting to figure out what I'm doing. It's a really awesome game where you play the spirits of an island defending against the colonizers invading. So it's like Pandemic, except you are the island gods destroying
Oh, that's a cool.
these
that's
colonizers
a cool theme.
who keep coming back.
Game.
And each player has their own
The
powers.
anti-Catan.
It's really cool. But you have to know, you know, there's the powers of the earth that are very strong and sturdy, but you start out strong, but you don't grow at an exponential rate. Or the water, where it's very feast and famine because of tides. They're all beautifully themed. It's hard as hell. I can't play this with my family. It's taken me 3 times to do it over extended periods with 2 people who've played the game 40, 50 times. So I'm trying to kind of cooperative game that's not a baby game and isn't going to take more than 10 minutes to explain. So it's not Pandemic, because they won't play that because they don't want to play anything
About the pandemic
themed.
Yeah, that kind of that game was so
I mean, fair
popular
enough.
before the pandemic, and
I know. I played it during the pandemic with someone who worked at the CDC who was like, I still like this game. Bless Viv. But I was just going to say, if you've got sites for looking at family games and like a wide variety of board games other than Shut Up and Sit Down, which is my current source, please send them my way, because I've been looking at games and watching videos of people play games, and I haven't bought anything yet because nothing seems like a perfect blend of exactly what I'm looking for. I miss Matthew Baldwin's Defective Yeti used to do good game gift guides, and it was 10 minutes under an hour for gameplay was the rule. And he would only recommend those games. He did a list every year of games that came out that you could start playing in under 10 minutes and would take less than an hour. And that stopped publishing 5-6 years ago, and I've missed it every year since. So this is just a call to the ether. Well, save me from my internet rabbit hole. All I'm doing is looking at board games on the internet and going, is this my solution? I'm the butterfly meme. Is this my Christmas gift? Not because I can't afford multiple games, but because I'm only going to have one or two game nights.
You got one shot.
I got one shot at this. So
then you got to wait till next year.
Save me, folks. Give me a game that isn't mean and is cooperative, but doesn't feel cooperative. So isn't mean. Play it.
I always pull out Wingspan because it's competitive, but it might as well be cooperative because there's so little interaction. And the theming is really accessible. It's not 10 minutes, and it's probably more than an hour, though.
Yeah, the issue with Wingspan, I think it's they want interaction.
Mm-hmm.
This is a group that wants interaction.
You get them Birds of Prey in there. Get the expansion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But I highly recommend Spirit Island, by the way, for anyone playing it. It's rad as hell. It would not be embraced by the family. It would take 20 minutes to explain for sure. It's worse than Wingspan level.
How much Uno do you play?
Speaking of Christmas, this is probably of no use to our listeners, so apologies in advance. But Shane, I need you to come along with us, Laura and I, talking about going to Meow Wolf.
He's on the email.
Holidays. I saw he was, but I didn't know if he's.
Need to check.
I don't think he's like thumbs up to anything yet. So this is me publicly bugging him. I'm probably gonna bring my kids. Listeners, if you haven't heard of Meow Wolf, or if you're not,
everybody knows Meow Wolf.
It's amazing
at this point, right?
Do they?
Yeah.
But don't shame anyone who doesn't.
No,
we're going to tell you about
right.
it.
Yeah. Meow Wolf is I don't know if I'm going to do the best job of explaining it. It's a artist collective thing where they do these extremely elaborate art installations, which are essentially like, I think of them almost as like little mini theme parks. They take over a space and they build like a little story almost in them. I've only been to one of them, the one in Grapevine, Texas. And they are in many other places, I believe, as well. Each of the Meow Wolf locations is unique. It's its own little like artistic installation. The one that I went to, can't wait to check out the new one, had this like house that you would go into, and there was, if you like poked around in all the corners, a kind of like a story about the people who lived there. It was like a very fully like fleshed out, like, here you're just in a house, but almost everything that you would open, from the refrigerator to the washing machine, would like go out into a tunnel, into a surreal space. So like that you could climb through the fridge and suddenly you were in a space filled with like weird flying fish and things like that. And just the most visually arresting place that you've ever been. And I think they could literally like teach Disney, like, you know, Imagineers or whatever, lessons about like how to draw somebody through a space, and you know, just incredible installations. And I mean, they're like, if you get a chance to go to a Meow Wolf thing, you absolutely should. They're incredible, and I'm just so excited that there's a new one. By the way, after the fact, Shane, I don't know if I remember telling you, if I told you this, the Meow Wolf installation in Grapevine, one of the areas it has is a room that has some I think a couple of fake arcade games in it, and one of them I found out later is a bespoke arcade machine made by Jolivier Nelson Jr. that is as a game that only exists in that one spot. And I didn't know that at the time. I played it just a little bit, but I just think that's the kind of thing that they do, is they work with like interesting people and artists.
Speaking of
like
interesting people and artists that work with them, somebody that I think both of you know, but I know at least Raygan knows, Melissa Eason worked on the new one in Houston. And
wonderful.
Yeah, she is.
My mom would call me every time she got a job doing like a grocery store, like drawing, and I was like, she's an actual artist.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
My mom would be really excited. Melissa Eason did the murals in Whole Foods. I was like, she also has an art gallery opening.
Hey, doing the murals in Whole Foods is a big deal. That's cool.
Yeah, it was lovely. My mom supported local artists the way she knew how, but I'm very excited she did Meow Wolf. That seems more up her alley.
Yeah, she's fantastic. Cool. And I too celebrate every time I see a new wall with another Joybrush mural on it. But some great ones. I think there was actually a mural contest or something like that this past week. I didn't get to go because I was a little under the weather those days, but pretty cool. Love to see the Meow Wolf with you guys.
Yeah. We're talking about doing it the day after Christmas. Okay. So
So anyone in Houston can stalk us there.
Don't be weird.
Edit it out.
You'll never know what time of day we'll be there. I like who we're imagining that we have listeners who are so obsessed with us, they're going to track us
get doxxed
at Meow Wolf the day after Christmas. Oh, listeners, we wish you loved us like that.
No, we don't.
It's not a challenge.
Not a challenge. Don't be weird. So what else is there to talk about? We're 50 minutes in. Hey, you read any good books lately?
I have. So I have a few fantastic horror novel recommendations for you guys. I think I have given a horror novel recommendation on the last episode I was on as well, which at the time I believe was the one with the demon hand, Fever House. I think I talked about, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Okay. But I don't think I told you about Corpse Mouth and Other Autobiographies.
Oh.
No, and that's a gross.
This is maybe my favorite discovery of this spooky season, where I've been really going all in on horror novels. This one is a collection of short stories that there's kind of an interweaving like horror, maybe not even story, maybe just vibe, but there's some really fantastic story. I'll focus just on the one that's the title story because I don't want to spoil a bunch of them, and also there are many fantastic stories in this book. But this one starts off with a kind of a visit to homeland in Ireland, and the discovery of this horrible monster that has lurked there forever, that is the sort of a giant of destruction that eats gods. It's very, very good stuff. It's so vibes based and so hard to give a really good recommendation, but if you're like me and you like horror that has a little bit of the cosmically weird to it, but is also, there's a reason why this book's called Corpse Mouth and Other Autobiographies. This is an author who pulls from his own kind of real life a lot in his writing, and through that has a real feeling of like groundedness and reality to the characters and the story. And there's a fantastic story in there of a favorite toy Godzilla that ultimately comes to life and stomps somebody. And I'm spoiling that one. I'm sorry. I've spoiled that one a little bit. But that story is it felt so true that when I found out that the author actually had that toy and that he was referencing, and it's talking about a handmade Godzilla toy, that I wasn't surprised at all. There's so much of the book feels like it's right out of somebody's real experience and brain, and then is simultaneously connected to this enormous cosmic horror that's sort of lurking kind of beyond comprehension. And great book. I want to recommend it.
Nice.
Cool. That sounds fun. I'd like to check that out. I haven't been reading much that I can recommend apart from I did just finish a something from a. I should find the title of the name of the author. Hang on a second.
I should have given the name of the author of Corpse Mouth. It's John Langan.
Yes. I'm back on my BS. My wife read a book that she recommended to me. It was called Half a Soul by Olivia Atwater. It's from a series called Regency Fairy Tales, and it is like, Regency romance meets, creepy fairies, that kind of vibe. But what I liked about it very much was that the very first thing that happens in it is a small girl gets assaulted by a fairy who steals half of her soul, and she lives the rest of her life impaired emotionally, I guess, mostly because she has half of a soul, and that means that she doesn't feel anything quite as deeply as anyone else does, and it just leaves her like unable to comprehend the social mores that are so important in the in the society and in like a Regency romance, and unable to feel deeply about anyone. And of course it's a romance, so of course she eventually learns to love or whatever, right? But it's interesting. Like, I don't think it's necessarily like explicitly a story about like disability or, I don't know, autism or anything like that. It's not like explicitly doing any of those things exactly, but it is a story. It's like a romance novel written with a very particular, main character, perspective character that I always really like romance novels that are not just like average person, where there's something a little more interesting about the protagonist. For example, I've read some really great romance novels with like autistic main characters and other things like that. And I think that's I'm always drawn to that. And this being a fantasy version of that, it was a little goofy, but it was pretty good. And I'm reading the second one in this series now, a different vibe. I don't think it's quite as good, but I can recommend at least the first one, Half a Soul. So
yeah, I don't remember which of these I've talked about on the podcast and which ones y'all recommended to me, but I'll say the 3 horror-tinged ones I've read. Some of them are just outright horror. But Lee Bardugo's The Familiar.
I loved it.
Is lovely.
Mm-hmm.
Little like light vampirism. It's got magic. It's set in Spain with during the Inquisition, and a Jewish woman in disguise who is a servant can do magic and moves up in the world. So it is more gothic than horror, but it's definitely got a lot of that flavor. And there is doom, and there is, they've got a scorpion on the cover. There's vibes there if you want them. If you want real blood, House of Hunger is a young woman who becomes a blood maid, which is a servant whose job it is to be, the lady of the house will suck your blood. And that's your job. And you are coddled and you are a privileged servant, but you are in favor and you rise the more she likes the taste of your blood and the more blood they take from you. But she's in a bad blood maid house where bad things happen because it's a horror novel.
Be horrible right out from the get-go.
The idea is that a blood maid is doing a bit of a devil's bargain, and that you need to be a certain type of greedy to be a blood maid.
Oh yeah,
because you want the money and the privilege and the position in exchange for your literal life force.
Truly a deal with the devil. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And the woman is definitely supposed to be the historical Elizabeth
Bathory.
Yeah. That's basically who this woman is. It's not disguised in the slightest. I think she's called Lisabeth Bathory or something old. It's exactly like, if they don't use the exact last name, it's one letter changed. And no complaints. I love a on the nose historical reference of we are doing this. Everyone get on board. So that's very, very bloody. But I think the actual horror novel I've liked the most is Someone You Can Build a Nest In.
Oh, I love that.
By John Wiswell, about a hunter shapeshifter who falls in love kind of with a human but only understands it through talk about kind of the autistic coded heroines. Yeah. This monster trying to figure out human culture definitely has the neurodivergent lead character of a murder bot, but it's a very good horror monster book that is about. I almost
It's
said flick,
also a romance. It's
but
very
it's also
sweet.
romance.
Yeah, she's a horrifying, hideous monster, but she also has a girlfriend, and it's very sweet.
And sometimes she needs to swallow a chair leg so that she can reach around her beloved a little bit easier.
Yeah.
So she can reach her arms all the way around, and it's that kind of thing.
It's like a romance novel about a shoggoth.
Yeah.
It's very or like a what are the like slime
But
creatures
romance.
from
It's
D&D?
not it's not a
Yeah.
paranormal erotica. Just for the line, because I know that's really popular nowadays. This is
Not
firmly a monster romance.
Mhm.
It's not a bad
Yeah,
thing. I'm just saying, if that's what you
the
want, there's
author,
other books.
The author is, I think, either like asexual or aromantic or one of the other.
And the
things from that
characters are
spectrum.
romantic, non-sexual.
Yeah, sorry if I'm misremembering. Apologies to the author there, but like I remember, like this definitely was like a personal story for him, and it was because he was writing a romance novel that he could appreciate, and I think it worked really well. It's like there's nothing sexual about Shisheshin, the creature, but she is very like she wants to be loved in a weird way.
It has
really
both. Cool. It has things in common with both this sort of the sort of popular subgenre of kind of like cozy queer romance and also horror, which is a very odd combination to put into one book. The idea of cozy
Laura,
horror.
did you see the UK cover for the book?
Yes, I did.
Very funny if you compare the US cover against the UK cover. The US cover is black and red. Shisheshin is depicted as like a grinning rictus in the background with tentacles and a witch hat and like looming over other characters. And then the UK cover is like a shining forest with two characters like walking through like a beautiful like sunlit forest
with
glade.
A church in the background.
Yeah, with a church, and it's like both of these covers are perfect for the story, which is so funny. It's a weird balance, but it's a good book.
Yeah, I love the marketing doing that. But I'll also say on the non-reading front, folks, you should watch Arachnophobia. It's still fun.
Oh my god.
Oh man, I haven't watched that in years.
It holds up.
Watch that again.
I watched it on Sunday for our movie night double feature. We did Cat People from 1942 and Arachnophobia, which paired better than you'd think. But I'll say that we are not the spookiest of households. We have very low horror tolerance. Using the we liberally, I have more, obviously, considering my reading material. But we don't like the spooky scaries that much. Arachnophobia, perfect.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to make one last quick recommendation for folks. This is a seasonal one as well, because this is coming out towards the end of October. You have very little time left, but if you haven't, I would recommend checking out the Ghost Town Pumpkin Festival game or the Mayor Bones annual. What is the title? The annual Ghost Town Pumpkin Festival by Adam Grew. I believe he's the same guy who did, what was it? Was it A Short Hike? A Short Hike. He has this game that he put out, I don't know how long ago, it's been many years now, that is only available during October. And he's expanded on it and tweaked it and touched it up a little bit every time since. But this is an online, massively multiplayer jack-o'-lantern carving festival. And it's free on itch.io, or you can pay $2 to get a hat for your character, which is great. And you boot up this game, you play as a little hovering ghost, and you can explore this beautiful, really well-made landscape where there's a spooky ghost house, there's a hayride that you can go on. But just on every single surface, there are thousands of jack-o'-lanterns carved by people playing the game all over the world. And you can download the game and carve your own jack-o'-lanterns. And it has some really neat jack-o'-lantern carving tools that you can use, digital jack-o'-lantern carving tools. Create your own digital jack-o'-lantern. Then go explore the festival, find a place, and put your pumpkin there. And you can walk around the festival and give awards to your favorite pumpkin carving designs that you see, which is awesome. And there's a lot of little stuff to do as you walk around as your little hovering ghost in the festival. And new this year, he added, I didn't do this part yet, he added, investigate an escape room style manner with tricky puzzles. Expect roughly 2 hours of puzzling. So if you're interested in that, like if you thought it wasn't game enough, you didn't want to just wander around a pumpkin festival, now there is gameplay, which is pretty cool. So this is free on itch.io. If you search for Ghost Town Pumpkin Festival, it should come up. And it's something that I've done before, but this is the first year I sat down and carved a pumpkin with my daughter, which she absolutely loved. So I would recommend that experience as well. It's really cool.
Nice.
I also recommend carving a pumpkin with your daughter.
I mean, we did it on my computer. We also will probably carve real pumpkins as well.
I have two. My son had a pumpkin that he was supposed to decorate, has decorated for school. We're taking it to school tomorrow in the shape of one of the Baudelaire orphans. But I ordered 3 pumpkins from the grocery store, and I did the grocery pickup. And they did that thing where they were like, hey, we were sold out of this, so we're going to substitute that. And normally it's like, oh, we were out of the small avocados. You get the big avocado. Well, this time they were out of the ordinary pumpkins. So they substituted 2 of the hugest pumpkins that I've ever seen in my life. And they were already in my car by the time I realized what was going on. So I have downstairs 2 of the largest pumpkins that I've ever seen. They're like the size, they're as large as my child. They're as big as my, I kind of want to carve them, but I'm a little scared.
They're going to collapse.
Yeah, they will.
I will say our primary Halloween watching next week has nothing to do with horror. It is a documentary called Lords of the Gourd that we found from
Lords of the Gourd.
Lords of the Gourd. Scarecrow Video was doing our staff recommends from, support our video store. We're all going to recommend 4 things from the library. And the woman who I thought had the best taste, her first pick was a PBS documentary, 44-minute documentary called Lords of the Gourd about oversized pumpkin contests. And I immediately went out and found it on Dailymotion because I couldn't wait to rent this video. Also, you can't rent it. You can only find it through means or a DVD. So I'm going to watch a very poor quality Lords of the Gourd next week on oversized pumpkins, and think of you, Shane, carving that beast.
I'm sure they have bigger ones than mine, but these are huge.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen those ones where they have to put sand under these giant pumpkins and stuff to make sure that they
kind of collapse under their own weight. They look. I'm going to know a lot more about how to grow an oversized pumpkin at the end of next week. Should we want to talk about it on the after hours of the 1,000 times resist?
I heard on the radio that when people came to the US and brought the pumpkin carving tradition, they didn't have pumpkins. They were instead carving turnips. So the original jack-o'-lantern was a turnip.
Is that true?
That's what it said on the internet, and that's never a lie. And now I've said it on the internet again, so you can cite it for Wikipedia.
Nice. All right. Well, listeners, thank you for joining us on this bit of a little bit of everything episode of The Short Game. Thank you for coming with us on this journey. And, if you have any feedback about any of the variety of topics that we have just discussed, hit us up on our Discord. This show is supported by our patrons on Patreon. If you go to shortgame.fm, you'll find all the links and buttons, including a link to patreon.com/theshortgame, which is where you can support the show. And all of our supporters on Patreon get instant access to our Discord community, which is a great online hang. It's the best place on the internet. We love all of our patrons, and it's where we get most of the recommendations for games that we cover on the show. Thank you to everyone who has suggested a game ever. And for the folks who have persisted in reminding me to go play 1,000 times Resist for months, almost a year now, and we're squeezing it in before GOTY season. Can't wait to talk about it. But if you want to talk about that game or any other game, or just badger us to play something, that we would love that, actually. Come do that, and also just hit us up about any topic on there, which is a great place to hang out. Let's see, what else is there to say? You can find me on the internet. No, we already did that. It's all on shortgame.fm. Go to shortgame.fm. All of our links are there, including all of our socials. I've been a little more active on Blue Sky lately. weirdly, it seems like some things keep going wrong on the former, bloated corpse of Twitter, and every now and then Blue Sky in particular is getting little influxes of like the people I used to follow there who were into retro gaming all just came over. Like the last couple of weeks, previously there hadn't been very many of them. Now almost all of the folks I used to follow on Twitter have made the switch over. The little mini exoduses keep happening there. So I'm still on Mastodon, but I'm spending most of my time just on Blue Sky these days. It's a good hang too. Let's see. Yeah, I've been Raygan Kelly.
I'm Lauren Ash.
And I'm Shane Kelly.
And thanks once again for joining us on this little bit weird episode of The Short Game.
We're allowed to just hang loose every once in a while.
Yeah.